So we are programmers, right? So we need to be able to work with data. Okay, but how we are going to work with data if you don't know how to store the data? So in order to actually work with the data, we need to have the capacity to store it somewhere. And we need to differentiate the types of data because we are going to have different data types. And we have complex ones and more primitive ones. And this time we're going to talk about the more primitive ones. As an example, maybe we want to store a number, 5. How we are going to do this? We need to store it somewhere. I need a variable or something that is going to take the problem. Maybe I want to store 5.5. Well, that's a different type of data type than 5. 5.5 is a float number. 5 is a whole number. So we need to store those in different data types. Firstly, what are those data types? So we are going to have a few primitive ones. Let's talk about the most used one. So we can say integer. So the integer data type is going to help us store whole numbers. It's having a limited capacity, like minus negative this number and plus this number. And it's not going to allow us to store only whole numbers. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to store 5.5 in an integer value. That's where the float numbers, float data types are coming to help us. So the float is going to help us store again negative numbers, positive numbers, 0, but this time we can have numbers with dots. So 5.5, 6.3, whatever. The maximum capacity is going to be negative this number and positive this number. Okay, what if we want to store a bit bigger data types? So we need to get over that threshold. So let's say that the integer is not good enough. Well, we can use long. Or long int. This is just going to be is going to have the same rules as the integer. It's going to store negative and positive and 0 whole numbers with this size and this size, but they can be bigger, obviously. And what if you want to store numbers with dots, like 5.8, but maybe way bigger? Well, we cannot use float because not big enough. It have a small capacity, 4 bytes. We want something with 8 bytes. So the integer can have only 4 bytes. We want something with 8 bytes. We use long int. The float can have again only 4 bytes. We want something bigger, like 8 bytes. And here comes double. So double is going to allow us to store bigger data types. The same negative, positive, 0, but with dots. So 5.5. Okay, another one. Maybe we want to store characters. So letters. Yes, we can store letters. So let's say char. This comes from character. This is going to be able to store letters. So like A, B, small b. Is going to be able to store this type of data types. Okay, but what if you want to store, I don't know, a name? Well, we are going to use an array of letters, but this is for another video. So you learned about the integer, you learned about the possibility to increase the limits of the integer, so long. We learned about the float. Maybe you want to store something with dots, like a price. And you learned about the bigger float, so double. And we learned about the character. Okay, let's say that the user is going to have a prompt up, a little pop-up if he agrees to do something, yes or no. So we can get the user answer. Yes, he agrees. No, he doesn't agree. That's a boolean type. So bool. This is going to allow us to store 1 or true. It's going to be the same, or 0, which is going to be false. It's going to be the same. So 0 will be false, 1 will be true will be 1, false will be 0. Okay, but how do we use these data types? So okay, I learned about the integer, the float, whatever. How can we use them? Well, that's where the variables comes in. How we can create a variable? So variable is just going to help us store the data. So we need to say the type of the variable. So what is going to store? A boolean type, so 1 or 0. a float number like 8.3, a bigger number, a smaller number, a negative number, a positive number, an integer like 500. So we need to think about it. So the type. Then we need to add a name. So this is going to be the name of the variable equals to the value. So let's try it. Let's say that we want to store 500. So we can say that it's a whole number. So we can store it, it's not that big, so we can store it in an integer. So we can call it as a name, I don't know, A, and it's going to be an integer. And now this A is going to be able to store 500. So in its capacity is going to have 500. What if you want to store 500.3? Well, let's say B. This is going to be a float number. What if you want to store true or false? When we talk about boolean, so C is going to be a boolean. So C is going to be true or false, or you can say 1 or 0. It's going to be the same. Okay, but maybe we want to store something bigger, something like this. Just an idea. That's a bit too big though. Let's say this, or this should be enough. Well, we can change this to long. So in change of integer, we can say long integer. It's going to have the capacity to store this number to at the power of 40. Maybe we want to store 2 at the power of 40, but maybe it's going to have a dot or something like this. Well, we can change this one to a double. And that's the whole idea. Okay, next. The boolean, that's simple. Let's say that we want to store a character. So the same, it's a character. Let's say A. We need to add the commas and just add the name. So B is going to be a char. So now B is helping us store the letter A. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Have fun. Let's put this into the practice, into a code.